listeners to the BizBlend podcast, where we explore the soul behind the strategy, the intersection where personal evolution meets business transformation. Now, today's guest is someone whose journey has completely redefined what it means to lead with purpose. Vince Covino once built and lost $100 million company, driven by a belief that he was doing it all for God. But what followed wasn't failure, it was awakening. Listeners, Vince is now the visionary CEO of Warrior Sage, which is a transformational leadership organization helping business leaders align success with soul. His story is raw, real, and deeply human. From navigating spiritual disillusionment to facing public scrutiny, Vince has turned pain and adversity into purpose and ego into empathy. So today we are not just talking about business. We are talking about what happens when you burn it all down and you rebuild from truth. This conversation is for all those founders, the seekers, the overachievers, and the quietly unraveling out there. So you are not alone. So let's quickly get and dive deep into this soulful conversation. So Vince, welcome to the show, and it is an absolute honor having you with us today.
Sana, thank you. I appreciate the introduction. It's been such an adventure, such a journey, and you explained it well in the intro. A couple of decades of a couple of dozen businesses, lots of success, lots of profits, but so much discovery along the way. So happy to dig into that, and I hope that my story has some resonance with other entrepreneurs out there. There's been so much that I've learned, and I often reflect back and wonder, could I have learned this stuff paying tuition at a college? I don't know, but I will say that the lessons and the experiences have created significant judgment and wisdom and just enlightenment for me on a very soul level.
Exactly. Exactly. Every human, every soul is unique. They have their own journey, they have their own stories to share. So I'm very much confident that today's conversation insights will definitely connect with all of our listeners. So starting with your journey, Vince, from chasing profit to then pursuing purpose, it is incredibly powerful. So can you take us back to that moment, or maybe the series of moments where you knew something had to change, or maybe something wasn't working out for you?
Great God, what a great question. I remember being on a vacation where we were driving these really fancy cars. My family and I, we were going down to the coast, and we took in our carpool of our family. There's about 20 of us. We had a Bentley, a couple of Porsches, a Lamborghini, and it would have been either a McLaren or something else. There was pretty cool. And I remember feeling, okay, we've had all this tremendous success. It felt anticlimactic. It felt like, is this it? Have I arrived?
Mhm.
Or is there more I need to go out and do? Do I need to go out and double the company? And I realized that I was working feverishly on an expansion plan, and I didn't have any really reason of why I was doing it, other than it just was the next thing to do. It was the next conquest. Simultaneously, I was doing a deep dive into the history of my religion and religion at large. And so my beliefs totally changed. And when that happened, I just gave up my identity as someone who was a Mormon who believed that he was great and noble and was chosen by God to be here at this time to do this specific work. I let go of that. I let go of the why I was the purpose that I was assigned, which was basically to teach God's gospel, and then where I'm going when I die. So all of those things converged. The idea of the profits and putting that as a priority. I was an absolute capitalist in the Milton Friedman economic model. Pay profits come first.
Okay.
And I believed that God was prospering me because he wanted me to do certain work. That may seem super naive. It may seem arrogant, but it was a deep held belief of mine that, okay, God is just giving me this success. He's multiplying means in my hands, and I'm using it to do his work. All of that collapsed. The religious beliefs and beliefs around capitalism collapsed, and I hired a CEO coach that helped me to really go deeply internal, and that led to an awakening. It led to me seeing myself totally different. It allowed me to come to really love myself for who I am and develop my own identity, or I should say maybe reveal my identity, my true essence. And I came to understand that and deeply respect and admire it. And when that happened, that was a domino that just flipped everything. It just changed my entire life and how I perceived people and meaning and purpose. And and so I just feel now, after going through that journey, most business owners have not gone through that process, and so they don't. Unfortunately, they don't get to experience the depth and the intimacy that one can have in solitude with themselves, and when they have an alignment deeply, deeply from within that is very you said unique, right? Each of us is unique. That is very unique to us. And I think most of us go through life without maybe discovering that. At least I think I did for the good first chunk of my life.
Mm. And this level of honesty, to be very frank, it's rare in leadership because we often don't associate vulnerability with a strong, effective leader. And it definitely speaks to how powerful disillusionment can be. I mean, sometimes uh, the moment where we are at our lowest, that breaking, that exactly is what leads us back to ourselves. So thank you for sharing that, Vince. I think so many of us can take some lessons from your journey, especially the CEOs or the founders who are in constant hustle, and they don't, maybe willingly or unwillingly, they don't have that time to um, understand or maybe have self awareness or maybe just realize who exactly they are. So, uh, my next question from here would be, was there any fear, Vince, that your business credibility wouldn't survive your transformation? Did you think that, okay, if I'm changing, then maybe I won't be able to, be a good business person?
Well, that's the beauty of transformation. True transformation, like from the inside out. That's the only way to really change your outer world, is by going deep within. And once you've done that, in my experience, is that you're not worried about what the consequences of that are. You're just simply saying, what is truth for me? And how do I ensure that my thinking brain, my rational mind, and the feelings, the instincts at the gut instinctual level, you think about a lion in the wild. If he were not paying attention or attuned to his instincts, he would not do very well. We have, I believe, as humans, suppressed our own instincts, especially business owners, so much in their head. They're so heady. And so they never, to use your words, Sana, I really love you're capturing the essence of what I'm hoping to express here. And that is, when you return, you said, back to yourself. People are so busy, they're in the hustle, that they never take the time to understand who they are and have that level of self-awareness. And so they're so worried about, what will this business deal do? Will this succeed? And and that causes them to make decisions that are not true to themselves. I didn't care if I failed. I knew I could make money. I understand money. I understand business. If I'd wanted to be in the hot dog business, I could have 1,000 hot dog stands. I know how to scale. I've had tremendous successes in lots of businesses. I wasn't worried about that. I was far more worried that I would fall again into the trap of a system, a script of, hey, so this is how society says you should run a business. This is how capitalism or economics or supply and demand says that you ought to approach the business. And I thought, there's a lot of great principles out there, but I have to begin with my own inner voice, my own beliefs about why I'm on the planet, who I'm here to serve, what am I really here to do, so that when I get to the end of my life, I can say, how must I live so that I don't have a life with any regrets? And for me, that wasn't about how does sharing this story affect the next business deal for me? Maybe horribly. Maybe it causes a bunch of past employees to come out and sue me. I don't even care anymore. I care so much about being aligned with truth and being just radically honest, which I still find is hard. I hate to admit it, but I still catch myself saying, "Oh, nope, nope, that's drifting. I'm drifting from my truth." And I try very hard to bring myself back and stay in perfect alignment, because I find when I do that, I have a great level of peace, great level of calm in my life. I feel centered.
Mm, that's the word. You feel centered, grounded.
Yeah.
Great. Also, let's talk about the word ego. You talk about dismantling the ego, something a lot of entrepreneurs build their entire identity around. So what did that look like for you in practice?
Oh boy. I'm gonna go deep here. So
Yeah.
this was a freaking process. It is so hard and it's so painful, but I will say this. One of my mentors, and I've had 5 or 6 great mentors, and I almost want to say it took all of them and psychedelics and plant medicine running in my system for me to really fully perceive me, to see myself as I am, as I'm seen, as I'm known, to be able to understand that and process it, and then take that awareness as if I've left my ego and I'm just looking down at Vince and I'm saying, who is this one? Who is this person that you're sitting with, Vince? What is he about? What does he care very deeply about? If he's just silent, what does he hear? Is there a nudge? Is there direction? Are there instincts? And I will say that there was an ego that to maybe to use a metaphor, was standing at the doorway to my greatest life, to my greatest expansion of my soul, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure that means to me what it probably means to other people, but for me, it's my heart, my mind, all of my essence and my uniqueness. That there was these systems, these societal imprints or family trappings, family systems that were passed down from my dad, passed down from his dad, passed down from my mom and her parents, that that caused me to be stuck, or even systems in my religion that said this is how a patriarchy works. This is how a husband and wife should function. This is how many kids they should have. All of these things. I had to dismantle all that. And the ego, it wants to be right. It wants to confirm all the biases that we were raised with. That most of the ones we were raised with are based on religion or society, which comes down to where you were born, right? I was born in Texas. So what we're raised believing here as a Mormon in Texas, or eventually then a Mormon in Idaho, is totally different than someone in India that was, raised as a Hindu, or somebody in Indonesia raised as a Muslim. So I had to wipe the slate clean, so to speak, remove the biases, and doing that required me to fight my own deeply held beliefs. I had to examine those. I had to examine my motives, and it's as if there was my ego that was stood as like a sentinel or like a guard, big fierce guard, that the ego that's like, hey, you're not going through this door of expansion because I'm blocking it. And so you have to go fight that ego. You have to go confront all of those beliefs that 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 you use to create your own intrinsic inner value. And you have to say, I'm willing to slay all of that. I'm willing to confront it. I'm willing to be dead wrong about all of it, so that I can get to the truth and I can get through this doorway into the next level of enlightenment, of expansion for me. And it is a sweet fire. It's a fire, right? but it is a sweet fire because when you pass through, you realize, oh, underneath all of those external needs, crying for attention, for someone to say, wow, look at me, look at my gold medal, look at the money, look at the cars, look at the whatever. I was able to say, no, Vince looks at Vince and admires, doing the best he could with what he knew. And as soon as he knew better, he stepped up and he became more conscious and more loving. He became more humble. He became committed to truth and not to his biases, not to his long held beliefs of Republican or Democrat or whatever. All of those views shifted to now be weighed based upon what does my mind and what does my feelings, my gut tell me, and then to be aligned with that. It's shifted everything. It's just made life so much deeper. It's made relationships so much more intimate and beautiful, and they flower, and I can hear people, and my kids open up to me. It's incredible.
Mhm. Huh. Okay. And you also moved from top down leadership to heart centered, conscious leadership. How exactly does this transformation worked out for you? I mean, how did it help you connect with your team, maybe your audience, your clients, or and in fact yourself?
Yeah, great question. First of all, you asked about the journey to the heart. There is armor. There are giant walls. Just think about the Berlin Wall.
Yep.
Reagan goes to Gorbachev and he says, tear down this wall. There is a freaking wall. There is armor that stands between most business owners, virtually all of them, and the deep innermost parts of their true authentic self. To deny it is to deny reality, and it'll keep them stuck. And they've, in many cases, we've got concrete thinking in our brain, and we have to use a damn jackhammer to break it loose. For me, psychedelics helped with that because it opens up new thought patterns and just amplifies the brain. And in the right set and setting, it allows you to see things in a different light, in a profound way. And so the first step is the true connection, 18 inches from the mind, the prefrontal cortex, which is the whole conductor of the symphony of my life, all the way down to the deepest parts of my heart. And what I find is when I'm in deep meditation, uh, holotropic breathing and ice baths and quietness and solitude, that I feel whole. I feel my mind and my spirit, my soul, if you might call it that, are fully integrated. And it's like a team now when I have that. When I have that, I'm not worried about what someone else thinks of me. I'm not worried about trying to get approval, trying to get validation, trying to say, Dad, look at me, look at what I've accomplished. I don't need any of that anymore because I realized I was enough. I was significant. The humans have that. They just lose sight of it normally when they're 5, 6, 7 years old because they've got to adapt to get acceptance from their parents. And so from that time on, they're like a little computer, and the record button is on, just recording everything they learn about life. And then they get into their teens, 18, 20 years old, and they hit the play button, and it's just playing a story. And to be able to see what those stories are, allow you to see yourself. And then once you see yourself, everything else is just like automatic. You have all this processing power in the heart, the instincts, the mind, to be able to perceive and feel into, to attune to the other people in your life. You ask to your team, you can see them. You can see here's the great thing. You don't just see them, you see their gifts, their heart, their contribution. You realize that out of everyone on the planet they could go work for, they chose you. And then you just, you love that trust and you want to honor them for the decision that they made. And then connecting with clients or guests or customers, whatever it is for a business. Instead of trying to, my approach had always been, as a financial planner, and then I would say my main clients were probably, investment partners or landlords or maybe executives in my company that I hired. When I was able to connect intimately with them, heart to heart. No dishonesty, no manipulation. They could feel it. They could sense it. And then I now am doing business and doing relationships at the speed of trust, which is light speed. That's the fastest gear. High levels of trust in the business, in the family, with the clients, and then you're not selling them something. You're saying, look at this beautiful thing that we could be doing. Look at this purpose. Look how this aligns and how this fills this need here. And you're just sharing it because you truly care, and you realize that what you have to offer will enhance somebody's life. It'll add immense value to their lives. And when you approach it from that standpoint, you get to the end of the day and you just feel fulfilled. You feel like you've enhanced somebody's life. You feel like you've been an instrument in persuading them to make the best decisions for their life, and giving them solutions that they needed, and they just didn't know where to find them. It's a totally different orientation.
And this shift is so needed right now. I mean, people they don't want to be managed or just given orders. They want to be met. So I I have I have personally uh, believed in this that the more human I am, let's say with my team, the stronger the team dynamics can be, and stronger we are individually as well as collaboratively.
I mean, that's the recipe, Sana. I can tell you get it. In other words, instead of moving from this place of this is what you'll do, this is your numbers you need to hit, here's your quota, here's your it's micromanagement. And the shift to a human centric business where it's not about strategy and execution first, it's about culture and the people that you serve. And you think about what is more human, what does that look like? Most business leaders, most politicians, they're not leading with their heart. They're not leading more human. They're using platitudes, they're full of shit. They're saying things that placate other people, right? They're manipulating. And once you've been in this process, you can see it from so far away. You can smell it instantly. But it's what you talked about, San, about collaboration. That comes in my mind with being more human, which is to say open and vulnerable and authentic and interested and curious.
Mm, true. And unfortunately or fortunately, there's a handful only. And I think that's kind of, uh, I think every person, when one person at a time has this self realization or self awareness, especially the leaders or the business people out there, I think it's a ripple effect. That's where the power of community, the power of humanity comes into play. Um, okay, so Vince also, um, you left the LDS church after 47 years, and that's not a small step, especially if we consider today's context. How did your spiritual deconstruction impact your relationship with personal growth and the way you define success?
Oh my gosh, it was massive. I just can't. It is caterpillar to butterfly chrysalis. I became a different creature. I became myself. In other words, I was living on an assignment of here's how to act, here's how to talk, here's how to live, here's why you live, here's why you're alive. Every decision in the church was the first priority in my life. I had certain systems that I just fully 100% accepted. And I thought, look, if this is true, I must live it 100% as what God wants. When I deconstructed from that, I realized that I was living um, based upon like an instruction manual that to me now I can look back and realize somebody just had completely made up, which I believe all religion essentially it's just made up. And I understand the evolution of it and how it was made up and why. I won't dig into that, but when I realized all that, I realized I could live a life that was truly sourced in my own instincts, that I could trust my own inner advisor. I could trust my inner light. And what I found was, it was about a year ago, I suppose, I just want to close that loop with this thought, and that is, there's a song from Rush, and it makes the case that those who are in places of leadership have to be the ones to create a new reality. And the whole point is that the reality is closer to the heart. So being able to work with leaders, help them to be able to crystallize their own uh, purpose, see it so vividly, being able to align with who they are at their core. I believe that's where the ripple effect that you talk about, I believe that's where it happens. It's with the leaders who hold influence, who serve lots of clients, lots of employees, make big decisions that impact people. You have the ability, let's say you have 100 employees, you have the ability to set a culture to where all 100 of them go home feeling seen and loved, and they contributed, and there's great energy, and they go home to their kids, and they transmit that very culture, that very energy into their homes. And their kids then go and transmit it into their schools, into their friend groups. The power of leaders, especially in business, it is moving. So much of the power has been in government. That's changing. Entrepreneurs have the power, and the ones, and they just have to have a choice to how they will use that power. Will they use it to lift others and brighten their lives and bring value? Or will they use it to control and manipulate and keep their people small? I believe the leaders have the power to do amazing things to lift the entire society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Great. So before we wrap up this stunningly beautiful conversation, Vince, so many of our listeners, they are leaders today, or maybe they will be the future leaders, and they are evolving, and they are kind of outgrowing their old goals and asking, now what? So, what would you say to them as they stand on that edge?
I think there's a lot of people, a lot of business owners that have hit a ceiling. They said, I've had this success, I've done this. Now what do I do? Now where do I go? And my advice to them is recognize that there is more to your life than your business. It's a vehicle. What do you ultimately want most? Because you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything. You can have a big, massive company where you're working 80 or 90 hours a week. Very often that comes at the cost of your physical health, running your body into the ground, or you're running relationships into the ground. I would say recognize, people, that you are multidimensional, and put focus time, focus energy, put your attention and your money into your spiritual development, into your relationships. Become an expert, become a master communicator, become somebody who understands people, who eliminates your own emotional triggers, who can be regulated, who can maintain a state, and even exude a state to the others around you that is positive and magnetic and charismatic and loving and humble and confident. And those people that are truly multidimensional, that are successful at home and in their relationships and in their business and with their money and with their bodies, with their physical bodies, and their deep spiritual alignment with their purpose. I would say look at each of those massive areas of your life, and find out where you need attention, and go lean into that. Go to that place and say, this is where my life hurts. This is where I'm weak. And I'm going to become a master in this realm. And that will affect every other aspect of your life. And you'll get expansions. You'll break through ceilings over in that dimension of your life by leveling up this dimension of your life.
That's such a beautiful reminder, Vince. Lovely. So, if our listeners would like to connect with you, how they can do that?
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Sana. VinceCovino.com, warriorsage.com. There's business tools and resources on those sites, and I would love to connect.
Beautiful. I'll have all the details and links in the show notes mentioned. And Vince, thank you. Thank you for your truth, your vulnerability, transformation, the transparency. And I guess uh, the message which you shared, it's equally relevant for today's leaders and the future leaders as well, because fortunately, unfortunately, we are going into tougher times. And as humans collectively, especially leaders, we have to be conscious about what's good for us individually as well as collectively. So thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, and also your story is such a powerful example that a real success isn't just about numbers or the cars or the house you have or the money. It's about who we become in the process. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Hassan, it's my pleasure. I'll just share one final thought. My CEO coach that I hired, he's a founder of Warrior Sage and now my partner. At Warrior Sage, we take the approach of when you have the opportunity to lead, you lead. And you've given me the opportunity today to share that story. And because you just create such a safe place, I was able to just fully open and express everything. And I appreciate you listening and creating that environment. So thank you for being an incredible host.
That's such a beautiful, beautiful thank you message. That's such a beautiful piece of gratitude. Ah, and to all of our listeners tuning in, maybe you are in your own unraveling, or maybe you are leading something big, but quietly craving depth. Either way, this is your invitation. You can lead and feel, you can win and heal. And to connect with Vince, just refer to the show notes along with this episode. And as always, thank you to every one of you for tuning into this episode of BizBlend, for blending heart with hustle here. And until next time, lead with soul. Thank you.